The divine axis. Why your manifestation keeps falling apart. Before we begin, I want to offer this teaching to Shiva. To me, Shiva is more than the God I pray to. He is the presence I return to, my witness, my refuge, and in the most personal sense, my eternal axis. When ambition makes the mind restless, I return to him. When fear clouds the road, I return to him. When something beautiful enters my life, I return in gratitude. And when I have done everything I can, but the outcome is no longer mine to command, I return in surrender. Over time, I began to understand something through that relationship. Everything around us moves. Our desires move. Our fears move. Our circumstances move. Even the person we believe ourselves to be keeps changing. But within all that movement, we need one place that remains still. One center to which the scattered mind can return. That idea became the foundation of the divine axis. And for me, that center, that axis, has always been Shiva. The pattern I kept seeing. For a while now, my work has put me in front of people who actually built the thing they once said they wanted. A business, a stronger body, a marriage that survived difficult years, a life in a country they weren't born in. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being interested only in the question everyone asks. How did you do it? I became more interested in who they were before any of it existed. Again and again, I noticed a similar pattern. At some point, the desire stopped being something they performed for other people. They became honest about it. Honest about what they wanted. Honest about why they wanted it. Honest about what frightened them. And for many people I have known, that honesty eventually found its way into prayer. Not the polished version, the private one. I want this more than I admit. I'm afraid I may fail. I don't know whether I'm ready. That made me start questioning what prayer actually does to a desire. Because what if manifestation isn't simply about wishing harder? What if something changes when the desire becomes clear enough for your mind, your actions, and your faith to begin moving around the same center? That question eventually led me to something I call the divine axis. 3 movements: see clearly, align completely, release desperation. And at the center of all 3, God. The mechanism. Here's the mechanism as best I can understand it from watching this pattern repeat. When you bring God the honest version of a desire, not the safe version, the desire becomes easier to see clearly. It stops being a vague longing sitting beside 5 other vague longings. It becomes a direction your mind can return to. And once the direction becomes clearer, something very practical can happen. You begin noticing what belongs to that direction. The skill you don't have yet, the conversation you've been avoiding, the habit holding you back, the opportunity you may have ignored before, the next step that was difficult to see when everything was vague. A clear desire gives attention a direction. Directed attention makes action easier to organize. Repeated action creates progress. And progress gives you new information about what to do next. That's one way I understand the practical side of manifestation. I personally believe there is a spiritual dimension too, but I don't need to pretend I can explain every part of that scientifically. What I can observe is this: where attention repeatedly goes, perception and action begin to follow. Not magic, direction. Stage 1, Sankalpa. See clearly. Ancient Indian traditions give great importance to Sankalpa, a clear inner resolve. It isn't exactly the same thing as modern manifestation, but it points toward something we often forget. Before action can become coherent, intention has to become clear, and clarity is not always comfortable. Most of us know how to describe the acceptable version of what we want. I want freedom. I want to grow. I want to help people. But underneath that may be another sentence. I want to prove that I can do it. I'm terrified of living the life I watched someone else live. I want recognition. I want security because I know what it feels like not to have it. I want this so badly that I'm afraid to say it aloud. That does not automatically make the desire wrong, but until you can see what is really inside it, you cannot fully understand what is driving you. So instead of immediately asking, "How do I manifest this?" ask, "What do I actually want? Why do I want it? What do I believe it will give me? What part of this comes from love? What part comes from fear? What part comes from ego? What would this life require from me? What would I need to learn? What might I need to give up? Who would I need to become to carry it responsibly?" Then, bring that before God plainly. This is what is actually living inside me. Help me see it clearly. For me, that is one of the deepest functions of prayer. Prayer becomes a mirror. Then, use visualization. At night, see one simple scene, not an entire imaginary future. One moment that represents the direction you're moving towards. Hold it. Then ask the question most manifestation advice skips. What is actually standing between me and this? Money? Fear? Skill? A missing qualification? Procrastination? A conversation you don't want to have? Name it. Then connect that obstacle to one action. Not someday, tomorrow. If fear makes me delay this tomorrow, I will work on it for 20 minutes before I open my phone. Now the vision has feet. Seeing clearly was never about staring at the destination. It is seeing the destination, the road, and the next step. Stage 2. One-pointedness. Align completely. Once the desire becomes clear, contradiction usually appears. I want this, and underneath, but I'm afraid of what it may cost me. I believe I can do it. I'm not sure I'm ready. I want change. I also want the safety of what I already know. That does not mean manifestation has failed. It means you finally met your whole self. There is an old yogic story about a man resting beneath a wishing tree. He becomes hungry and thinks of food. Food appears. He wants something to drink. That appears too. Then his mind becomes afraid. What if there are ghosts here? Fear takes over. Then, what if they hurt me? And the same mind that imagined possibility becomes trapped by its own fear. I don't take that story as proof that every thought instantly becomes physical reality. I take it as a warning about what happens when possibility and fear are both allowed to command the same mind. An unmanaged mind can turn possibility into suffering. Before asking life to listen to your intention, learn to make your own mind return to it. So don't bring only the confident half of yourself to God. Bring both halves. This is what I want. And this is what scares me about wanting it. This is what I can do. This is where I am weak. This is what I know. This is where I need help. Now you're not trying to manufacture positivity. You're seeing the whole context. Ability without arrogance. Fear without letting fear make your decisions. Hope without pretending obstacles don't exist. Faith without honesty can become fantasy. Honesty without faith can become paralysis. Alignment requires both. And then comes surrender. Surrender does not mean that God performs your responsibility. God is not filling out the application. God is not making the sales call. God is not training your body. God is not learning the skill for you. Those remain yours. Surrender means, I'll do what belongs to me, the preparation, the effort, the discipline, and I'll place the timing, uncertainty, and everything outside my control before you. The fear may remain, but it stops being in charge. Alignment is not the absence of fear. It is your whole self rowing in one direction despite it. Stage 3. Karma Yoga. Release desperation. Then comes the stage that may be hardest of all. You have seen the direction. You have begun acting. Now you have to stop strangling the outcome. The Bhagavad Gita gives us one of the great disciplines for this through the idea of karma yoga. Not passivity, almost the opposite. Act fully, but don't make your inner stability dependent on possessing the result. You can prepare the document, you cannot guarantee approval. You can build the business, you cannot command the market. You can love someone sincerely, you cannot control another person's heart. You can train your body, you cannot dictate every biological outcome. And yet, you still act completely, full effort, loose grip. Think about the resources inside an ordinary day. Take a 32-year-old man weighing around 80 kilos. Depending on height and activity, his body may need somewhere around 2,400 calories to support that day. That is physical fuel. But the calories don't decide what the day builds. He does. The body has physical capacity. The mind has limited attention. The day has limited hours. And all of them need direction. Two people can have the same opportunity. One spends an hour completing an important document. The other spends that hour thinking, what if it doesn't happen? What if I'm too late? What if this delay means I've failed? Both spent the hour. Only one converted attention into movement. That is the cost of desperation. Not that worry magically consumes all your calories. It occupies the attention and time that could have gone somewhere useful. You refresh the email. You check the message. You search for signs. You read delay as rejection. And eventually, the goal stops guiding your life. It begins consuming it. So ask a better question. What deserves my energy today? Do that. The document, the call, the workout, the conversation, the skill, the next responsible step. Then let the result breathe. Walk. Call your family. Eat. Read. Rest. Live the rest of your life. Because one desire should never be allowed to consume your whole identity. This is surrender in practical form. I'll do what is mine. I'll release what isn't.
Why God is the axis. And this is why God is not merely present at the beginning of this process. God sits at the center of all three stages. When the desire is confused, return to God for clarity. When fear divides you, return to God for alignment. When the outcome begins consuming you, return to God in surrender. And prayer has one advantage that makes it uniquely powerful for me. It travels. A journal stays on the table, a vision board stays on the wall. A formal meditation may require a quiet room. Prayer goes with you. Into a taxi, through an airport, on a flight, walking down the street, before a difficult meeting, after bad news. In 30 seconds of fear in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, you can return, God, help me see this clearly. Help me act wisely. Help me recognize what belongs to me. And help me release what I cannot control. 30 seconds, But in those 30 seconds, you have remembered your direction. You have acknowledged the fear. You have recalled your responsibility. And instead of allowing your mind to drift automatically toward worry, you have deliberately brought it back. For me, prayer makes self-deception harder to maintain. I may be able to perform confidence for other people. Before God, I know when I'm hiding from myself. That's why prayer sits at the center of the divine axis. Picture a wheel. Around the outside, desire, fear, ability, limitation, attention, action, uncertainty, outcome. All of it moves. At the center, God. And prayer is the return. That repeated return is the axis. The desire may change, the strategy may change, fear may come and go, but there is always one center to come back to: the practice. So tonight, bring God the honest version. Not the impressive one, not the safe one, the real one. See one seam. Name the real obstacle. Choose one action for tomorrow. Then, surrender the timing and sleep. Tomorrow, don't immediately search for a sign. Search for your next responsibility. And when your thoughts scatter again, return. You don't always need 10 minutes. Sometimes 30 seconds is enough. Desperation asks, "Where is my result?" Faith asks, "What's my next step?" See clearly. Align completely. Release desperation. Again and again, the pattern I have seen is this. Before the external life changes, something inside becomes clearer. The desire stops being something you merely wish for. It becomes something you can understand, prepare for, work toward, and eventually, surrender. That is why God sits at the center of the divine axis, not as a shortcut around the work, as the place you return when the desire becomes confused, when fear divides you, when attachment takes over, when you forget what belongs to you and what never did. God does not become the axis because he removes the journey. He becomes the axis because wherever the journey takes you, you can always return to him.